friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to talk about how the History Channel went from being about history to being about aliens. Why did this happen? How did this happen? Did the aliens do it? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes. Let's begin with a brief history of the History Channel. Hello, and welcome to A History of History. Let's begin. In 1992, the channel A&E produced the series The Real West, hosted by Kenny Rogers. It aired for 3 years and was the channel's highest rated show. And because of its success, they decided to create a whole new channel, and the History Channel was born. The channel launched January 1st, 1995, with a historical consultant for the show saying its mission was to raise awareness about the vitality of history, promote history education, and encourage the preservation of historic archives and sites. And believe it or not, they tried to stick to that for almost 15 years! The channel created its own historical documentaries and shows while also licensing ones from networks like the BBC and CBC to fill out the lineup with shows about war, architecture, crime, war, trains, and war. But at least it tried before. I mean, the channel even had educational programming geared toward kids that came with complimentary classroom materials. And it had Inspector Gadget's Field Trip, which is a show I remember because I was a cool kid with a lot of friends.
Inspector Gadget's Field Trip. What's that you ask? What is it? Inspector Gadget's Field Trip. Well, no one wants to miss it.
So, what happened? Well, in the mid to late 2000s, the History Channel was losing ratings big time. So they decided to dip their widow toesies into the hottest new trend, reality TV. The most historical thing of all, stuff happening right now. So in 2009, History premiered Pawn Stars, a show about a family-run pawn shop in Las Vegas.
I have no idea what it's worth. I'm ready for liftoff.
It became an instant hit and was the channel's highest rated show, and in 2011 became the second highest rated reality TV show behind the Jersey Shore. With success and ratings like that, it's no wonder the producers leaned in. And now the channel looks like this: American Pickers, Ancient Aliens, Swamp People, Axeman, Shark Wrangler, Curse of Oak Island, Beyond Oak Island, UFO Hunters, Appalachian Outlaws, Ice Road Truckers, and Vikings. A scripted series, because there's nothing more historical than creative fiction. And that brings us to right here, right now. Let's get back to past me in the chair. Now let's move on to the Ancient Aliens. Ancient Aliens followed up the success of Pawn Stars and has been airing since 2010. That's right, it's still airing to this very day, and I only got 3 seasons of Ted Lasso. So that's the kind of world we're living in. So for this video, I decided to go back and watch an entire episode from the first season. This episode opens on Eric von Daniken, a Swiss author and one of the hosts of the show, whose book, Chariots of the Gods, proposed and popularized the idea of ancient aliens. He's like the grandfather of the whole theory.
I asked the question, were primitive humans influenced by extraterrestrials, not gods? And if it all was like I suggested, where is the proof? So you start trying to find at least indications. That's what I have done now for at least 45 years.
So that's a little taste of him. The rest of the hosts go on to say how much von Daniken's book influenced them to say the nonsense that they say today, and they talk about it like it's a sci-fi novel.
When I was a boy, Chariot of the Gods was one of the books I first read. I mean, I ripped it apart. I digested it. I couldn't get enough of it.
I ripped it apart, I digested it, I put it in my mouth, I shit it out my ass.
And it really excited people. It was a new way of looking at the past. And it put this very modern space age spin to the whole thing.
I couldn't put that book down. It was a great combination of archaeology and adventure.
You see what I mean? A space age spin on the whole thing. This is supposed to be a scientific theory. It's not, but it's trying to be, I guess. I don't remember ever seeing experts in actually relevant fields in, like, other episodes, but they have them in this one. They have actual experts to go like, no, that's not right.
There is not a single piece of evidence that von Daniken puts forward that cannot be attributed to human ingenuity, technology, and development.
However, they do get significantly less of the time. Like maybe a tenth of a 90-minute episode is dedicated to people who have actually studied relevant topics.
But as controversial as many of von Daniken's theories are, believers point to tangible evidence.
Let's take a look at that tangible evidence. First up is Nazca, a desert in Peru that has large outlines of various animals and which very well could have been an airport for extraterrestrial beings.
You fly over this desert and you see some lines. The lines look like airstrips.
It looks like an airport, and it really does.
And it really does. Everybody stop saying that I'm crazy. It looks like an airport.
You see gigantic figures in the ground. Figures of fishes, monkeys, spiders, but of such overdimensional size that you can see them only from the air.
They couldn't be seen from anywhere but the sky, or the surrounding foothills and other high places.
The signs are made for somebody who flies. There's no way out of this. I hope archaeology sooner or later will come to a similar conclusion.
So once again, you've got this idea of like, okay, people are creating this, but what is the reason?
Well, they could have been irrigation systems, star maps, spiritual sites of worship, walking paths.
We just don't have a good idea of why people would do this.
Then, of course, there's Pakal the Great, the Mayan leader of Palenque, who has a very interesting carving on his sarcophagus.
Most believe the illustration shows Pakal descending into the Mayan underworld. But ancient astronaut theorists interpret the carving a vastly different way.
I bet they do.
You see a man, and he's sitting in a sort of capsule. He has some sort of mask on his nose, and you see his upper hand, he's manipulating some controls. From the lower hand, he's turning something on. The heel of his left foot is on a kind of pedal, and outside of the capsule, you see a linking flame. This is incredible. This is absolutely a proof for extraterrestrials.
Incredible. Then they show you how it could be a spaceship. Do you see now how it could be a spaceship? Then, of course, we have the pyramids of Egypt, which couldn't have been built by people, and therefore were built by aliens.
We have proposed that the pyramids were built by human hands, but with the assistance of extraterrestrial technology.
I don't want to discount human ingenuity because I do believe that we do have the ability to do these things.
Oh, okay, then don't.
But the knowledge to build some of these monuments, there had to have been some type of intervention or some type of knowledge given to ancient man to carry out those instructions. They couldn't have just come up with it on their own.
And this is where they really start getting into just calling ancient people like dumb. They just keep saying that they're too stupid to have learned things on their own. These ancient people might as well have been sacks of potatoes to the hosts of this show.
Without a little interplanetary help, how else could early Egyptians have learned to stack?
You mean to tell me that people of that time period did this by hand? I don't think so.
These people are supposed to be very primitive.
Someone who had seen this had to have actually relayed the information to them because they couldn't have just guessed.
Well, I'm not smart enough or strong enough to do these things, so there's no way anyone else could be. I don't know how to use Stone Age tools, so how would they have figured it out? Just because you're a moron doesn't mean ancient people were.
There's the evidence you can read, such as that found in ancient texts. And then there's the evidence you can actually see.
I guess you can't see writing. It's ancient audiobooks. Ancient Audible.
In Guatemala City, we have a sculpture that looks eerily reminiscent of a modern-day astronaut. I mean, that thing is wearing a helmet. There's some type of a mouthpiece, and on his chest are some type of controls or a breathing apparatus. How is this possible? 1,500 years ago.
This looks like an astronaut. Does this not just look like a person with perhaps a headdress on? That's not an alien, dude.
In Colombia, there were thousands of tomb artifacts that look like modern-day airplanes. It has fixed wings, it has a fuselage,
and it has eyes.
And it has an upright tail fin, which is not intrinsic to nature.
Upright tail fins are not intrinsic to nature. He's never seen a fish before? Oh my god, what is it? There's gotta be an airplane! Oh my god, it's not intrinsic to nature!
Did our ancestors see something similar flying in the air? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, you tell me another way that you can interpret this. I'd love to throw some, like, ink splotches in front of these guys and go like, what do you think? Do you think everything is aliens? Is there anything going on up there that's not alien related?
One of the good things about ancient astronaut theory is that it makes us think. It brings out the, what about this? What about that?
The good thing about this theory is that it really makes us think. What if this is aliens? What if that is aliens?
If it turns out that the ancient astronaut theory is wrong, I will be the first one to say, okay, no problem. But so far, certain pieces of evidence have not been debunked.
Now, I did read many articles for this video, because I know how to do research, unlike some people. And I pulled some quotes from a few of them, because I think that they explain this in a more concise way than I would. These questions are intentionally provocative and put the burden on academics and mainstream science to disprove the possibility of the premise. By adding an "and if so" statement to many of the questions, the show presents a highly improbable scenario with little to no supporting evidence as a reasonable possibility. By grafting cherry-picked support onto conspiracy theories, the show blurs the distinction between evidence-based scientific research and conspiratorial opinion. Scientists have already given legitimate reasons behind all of the stuff they present as evidence.
Archaeologists haven't really been able to explain why dissimilar cultures, separated by huge oceans, are building the same structures and in many ways the same way.
There's no other conclusions we can draw except that it's aliens. Get that through your heads, mainstream scientists.
Stone cutting techniques have been invented and reinvented and independently invented all over the world. And you want to have a structure built that's going to last thousands of years, it's much better to build it out of perfectly fitting stones without mortar, so we see mortarless structures all over the world.
By providing adherents to alternative archaeology or pseudo-archaeology with a platform to promote their ideas, history legitimizes their perspectives and threatens to undermine or delegitimize the research methods and conclusions of professional archaeologists.
And then as some skeptics will say, hey, that's the greatest archaeological way to make it, so they just knew it. I don't think that's the case.
It's not enough for these alien experts to spout off nonsense. They're also consistently acting like mainstream science and archaeology, the only science and archaeology, are the enemy of the general public and of people who believe in aliens. These mainstream archaeologists are hiding something, or they're too stupid to see the big picture. Aliens. Ancient alien theorists are the only ones thinking outside of the box by thinking that everything is always aliens and refusing to admit that things could maybe sometimes not be aliens. Aliens for this too? I never would have guessed. I'm not smart enough to think that everything's aliens. Not like you. While history moves further and further away from scholarly content, it continues to enjoy a scholarly authority regarding the past. But that's not all. Not only does the show fuel mistrust in legitimate science, it's also racist.
Mainstream archaeologists say that Puma Punku was built by the Aymara Indians. But there is one thing that all the mainstream archaeologists agree upon, that the Aymara didn't have any writing. So how is it possible that they built all of this without plans?
Giorgio, here is something that you would know if you had studied any amount of linguistics. Oral communication is very intrinsic to human nature. Writing, however, is not needed in a society. Plenty of cultures never developed writing, and they did just fine. You don't need writing to build shit. And in fact, the portion of your brain that you use to learn writing, if it's not used for that, gets used as more memory storage. So you just remember stuff better. Also, in like the old times in Europe, plenty of the people who were building stuff were illiterate. So how'd they manage that? Is that aliens too, Giorgio? Stupid. What a Eurocentric ideal for you to have. This show perpetuates the idea that humans, particularly non-white humans, were not smart enough, capable enough, or advanced enough to do just about anything. Without the help of aliens, that is. They don't think they could create art, structures, plans, farming techniques, buildings, religions, star charts, tools, stories, wheels, fucking calendars, pottery, sports, smooth surfaces, designs that look like birds, designs that look like fish, designs that look like people. They couldn't make anything, apparently. I mean, how are they even alive? That's right. Aliens. Duh. This is insulting to humans, and they go so far as to suggest that aliens over and over again intervened with life here on Earth, which frankly feels insulting to aliens. That they would have nothing better to do with their godlike powers than to come down here and build pyramids? Insulting. This is essentially coded for colonization. White Europeans brought gifts of language and tools and culture to civilizations that otherwise lacked these things, when in fact, they didn't lack them. They were doing fine on their own, and they were brought an obligation to conform or die. And in a lot of cases, both. But aliens wouldn't do that. They're just kindly little space helpers. And by extension, so are European colonizers. I'm not saying that. The alien people are saying that. And it's racist. I should probably mention that I'm not opposed to alien life existing somewhere in the universe. There's a lot of universe out there. What I am opposed to is suggesting that we're the center of all alien activity, and all ancient achievements and cultures were just aliens. That I have a problem with. Stripping the achievements of these communities' ancestors, paired with the fact that this show's predominant audience is middle-aged and older white men, who very likely already have racial biases. Those two things paired together are not great.
The ancient people of our time on this planet truly saw strange things. They witnessed bizarre events. But those stories, other than in depictions and some artwork and things like that, they're gone. For some reason, they're just gone.
Maybe because they don't exist, you know? But who's to say?
The ideas put forth by Eric von Daniken are still captivating his followers and frustrating his skeptics to this day, like an Old Testament prophet or an ancient shaman.
The show's narrator compares Eric von Daniken to a prophet. I don't know if I have a comment on that. It's just another way to indoctrinate people into this way of thinking. being like, you're smart if you think everything's an alien. Look at this fucking guy. Look at how many people think he's smart because he says that everything is aliens. Don't worry about what anyone else says. This guy, he's basically a prophet.
Far-fetched, ridiculous, insane.
Now he's getting it.
But what if it all turned out to be true?
Oh, so close.
What would happen if just one piece of evidence turned up? One stone, one key, that proved that von Daniken had been right all along.
Then we'd have evidence and it would be like an actual thing that scientists would look into. What if we just found one tiny shred of evidence? Wait. You've been telling me this whole time that you had proof. What was this whole show about? It's like, gee, that'd be great. It doesn't change the fact that you have no evidence currently.
There is no doubt that my hypothesis will be accepted by the mainstream. It may be a question of just 5 or 10 years.
Who's gonna tell him?
And one day they will return. And if you don't listen to Eric von Däniken, you will have the shock of the gods.
Ew. Feels threatening. Do you feel threatened? I think this guy's gonna kill me. Now, there is some good news. Viewership of traditional TV shows is steadily going down. So maybe this channel will just die in like a couple decades. Or it could just like, be about history. That's just like a thought. I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe. Yeah, think about it. Just think about it. Well, that's it. But if you want to see any of my extra thoughts or behind the scenes stuff, you can check it out on my Patreon that I just launched. I have a Patreon now, and you can check it out if you want. I'll see you in the next video, which won't take another 2 years to make. Probably.